All right. Monica Smit, how are
Hey.
you?
Oh, yeah. Pretty good.
I think a lot of people that are watching this would probably already know who you are. But if they don't know who you are, what's the best way that you would describe who you are or what you do or what you've been described as?
I call myself now like a full-time activist or a full-time freedom fighter. It's what I love to do. And basically that entails bringing people together, empowering people to stand up for themselves. That's what I do.
Well, I ran into you on the streets of Melbourne at a very peculiar time in our history in this city. And, my introduction to you, it was at a time in our city where we were not sure what was going on. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah. It was a very confusing time.
Yeah.
But also a beautiful time
Beautiful time.
in
Yeah.
this weird way.
Yeah.
Because we met, and not just you and me, but thousands of other people. It was a weirdly interesting and almost exciting is probably the wrong word, but because it was so confusing, it was exciting because it was spontaneous and you just never knew when a cop would come out and shoot you with a rubber bullet or
Yeah.
whether. So
Well, we're going to get to
you were gonna get
we're
there,
going to
but
get to all of that.
it was
but
a good time. It was
what I was
interesting.
what I guess what I was trying to get to
Yeah.
is that I met you on the streets during that time, but obviously a few years have passed since then, and a lot of things have happened. So yesterday, you are kind of at the finale of one of these type of chapters in your life. You're at the magistrate's court dealing with fines or convictions to do with your history during that time. What was the outcome of that?
So under the circumstances, I would say I'm really happy with the outcome. They were never going to just say, oh, yep, the fines are invalid. That's it. That's too big of a statement. So the outcome is that I was found guilty of breaking the restrictions, which I was guilty of, but no conviction, no penalty. That's it. It's over.
Yeah, and
I'm off bail now. I was on bail because of those.
yeah. So what was your, and if people don't know, you were on bail for, was that the same charge you spent time in jail for?
Well, I'll give you a quick summary.
Yeah.
So on the 31st of August 2021, I was arrested and given 5 charges. 3 of them were fines and 2 of them were incitement. Now, incitement carries a more heavy penalty. I was given bail conditions that I couldn't in good conscience sign because they were literally, I couldn't speak against the government basically in the privacy of my own home. So I refused to sign those. Went to prison for 22 days waiting for the appeal. Then all those bail conditions that I refused to sign were taken away, which is good. And then about 5 months later, they got a warrant out forcing me to give them password access to all my devices. They have 2 phones still in their custody now. I can go pick it up now today. But yeah, they tried to get access to that. I said no and risked going back to prison for breaching bail and another criminal offence of avoiding the warrant, basically. And then they dropped the incitement charges a week later. So clearly it was just an intimidation tactic. But anyway, the point is because the incitement charges were on the same charge sheet as the fines that I dealt with yesterday, I was still on bail for that. So for most people, a fine case is just a fine case. But for me, it was really a lot more significant than that because of the pain and suffering that me and my family and have gone through over the last 21 months. It was a big deal to have the magistrate say, you're no longer on bail. It was beautiful. It was beautiful.
Yeah. And so this is all happening in Australia. So what was the crime? What did you do? What led you to be in the sights of the police, the government, and the media, which we'll get to, because I think the media has played a big role in characterizing you in a certain light. What did you do that was so heinous to have the resources of the state used against you in this manner?
It's embarrassing to say this out loud. I left my house and I promoted a protest online. That's it.
But you were key in promoting these protests. That's what they're saying. Is because a lot of people went to protest. Like I would know. I was they're covering these protests. Are they saying that you were a key instrumental part of this?
Well,
Is that the
incitement
allegation?
charges carried the weight of it was my fault that all those people went to protest. So yes, but the fines obviously is just me myself going to the protest. And yesterday in the courtroom, he tried to bring into play the context around me going to protest. He's like, well, it wasn't just her going to the protest. She encouraged others. And I said, objection, because what is this, an incitement charge? No, it's not. Anyway, so we're trying to defame me in the courtroom as well. So the point is, I think I already answered your question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you think? I'm just throwing this out there.
Yeah.
This is from my personal view. How do you think the Australian public or the media, the politicians would react, for instance, if people in Iran, for instance, went to a protest because someone said, "Let's go protest," and then that person that said that was jailed, had fines imposed on them, had their lives turned upside down? Would we in the West condemn those type of actions?
Yes.
So why is it happening here?
I know you know why.
I don't know why. I'm just putting it to you because Well, what do you think?
So this is interesting because I brought this up yesterday in court as well, and I said to the magistrate, and I am answering your question because I said to the magistrate, if you thought the best thing to do during COVID was to stay home, then I respect you for that. I respect your wishes to stay home, but no one came knocking on your door at 1 o'clock in the morning, arresting you, raiding your house because you were doing what you thought was right. I said, we were doing what we thought was right. And to this day, we've been vindicated many times over that the lockdowns were over the top. But I'm getting harassed and put in prison for what I believe in. And in Australia, in a country where we're supposed to be able to follow our hearts and dreams, even if my opinion is crazy, which it's not because hundreds of thousands of people were on the streets with me, even if I'm crazy, you should at least respect my duty to stand up for my conscience. And this should be celebrated, even if it's crazy to do that. And I said it didn't come at a small price either. Standing up for human rights during the lockdowns was an extremely dangerous task to do. We know, we know, we were there. So why that's not celebrated is it's beyond me. We should be encouraging each other.
Look, I wouldn't even say celebrated. I think obviously there's going to be people in the community who have different views on this type of thing.
Yes.
So even as I gave an example of Iran, but there's people in Iran who will say these women should not be out on the streets protesting. A community is divided on this issue sometimes. Yeah. But there should be a legal protection at least. And we lost a lot of those kind of legal rights. But the court system is still entertaining these ideas from law enforcement that people who were fed up with what the government were doing, had enough of these restrictions or lockdowns or the imposition that was happening on their businesses and their lives. They went out and protested, so they should be punished for that. But at the same time, our court systems are not holding people in government accountable who put people through this, right? And we have the evidence today that a lot of the decisions that they made, in retrospect, in hindsight, whatever you want to say, were incorrect and were based on many, many false pretenses that destroyed people's lives, that led to people committing suicide. So, but they're not getting punished. But the average, everyday person, you, Monica Smit, who went to, protest or whatever you did, you had other people around you coming, you incited them. Let's say all of this is, as they say, they go after you. What does that tell you about our society?
I would like to know, are we in a democracy or are we in some sort of hybrid communism? That's what I would like to know. Are we or aren't we? If you tell me that, yes, Monica, Victoria is now a communist state. Okay, cool. So then I would know how to manage these types of things, But we're in this holding pattern of what the hell are we? Are we free or aren't we? And what happened to me, if I was in China, would make a lot of sense. It would fit. But it doesn't fit here.
But people here celebrate what happened to you. Like if I go online and read some of the commentary, some of the media commentary, people celebrate the fact that you were punished for this. They celebrate the fact that you put yourself in the position to end up in jail or solitary confinement. They celebrate the fact that even though the police and the government may have been wrong about everything that they did during that time, that you should still be punished because at that particular time, you went above what the community expectations were.
Yeah.
That's the view.
And that's obviously really hurtful to even consider. And I don't spend much time thinking about that. But it's a really sad place to be in when you know that your fellow citizens, who, by the way, you were actually fighting for, celebrate your pain and suffering and can't at least appreciate that, you were standing up for something, even if you don't agree with it. I find it hard to imagine. I wouldn't even celebrate pain on someone I hate. That's just not the person I am. So it's hard to imagine, but you've got to also consider that the media, like you said, they painted a picture of me being this terrible person. So obviously people are under a lot of propaganda from the media. So they're going to follow the popular opinion on whatever page they're on. And so they're not going to stand out and say, oh, no, you shouldn't. Look, I hate Monica too, but she shouldn't have gone through that. They're not going to stand up for me when they're surrounded by people who are saying the same thing.
Do you think you became a target of the media over the last 2-3 years to be the face of almost the movement against what the government was doing? You were kind of the poster child of being that target.
Yeah.
Because I would see often articles to anything to do with protests or lockdowns would refer back to Monica Smit or the organisation you're a part of, Reignite Democracy Australia. It would kind of all circle back to you. So you were kind of the villain in all of this to represent, instead of bashing all of the community, they would target one particular person, because it's usually easier to say it's this person rather than saying, wait, there's a whole lot of people in Victoria who are going through the same emotions. Well, let's just blame her and make her look crazy.
Like the fall girl.
The fall girl. Okay.
In fact, they even said I was at that council meeting. They said I was there physically and I wasn't there. So yeah, they still circled back even though I wasn't even there. So yeah, I guess.
What did you do to them? What did you do to the media? What have you done to them?
I would like to know.
Because there's some organizations like Crikey, The Guardian. They really have it in for you. They sometimes they even send their correspondents to come to some of your events, like to do stuff.
I know.
It's kind of weird in a way, because it's like why they're so invested in destroying you, but there is an element of that where you are this person that they would like to destroy. But even today, after all of this stuff is done, they would like to see you not do anything.
Yeah. I don't know why. It's funny. I met a journalist in person at my last case, and we got along really well because he got to meet me. I'm not this person that they paint me as. And I think the problem with media is they do a lot of their work from the computer. They don't go on the streets like you do. They don't meet the people. They don't talk to the people. They actually assume things. They don't even ask you for comment anymore. They just write whatever they want. And they lie, because like on the homepage of RDA it says X, Y, and Z, and they'll just say the complete opposite. So how can you do that as a journalist? That's completely against your oath. It's completely against everything. So I think the biggest issue is they're not meeting people anymore. They're not even talking to them and giving them a chance. Someone writes something and every other news article just edits that into their own words, but they just take the sentiment with them. They're not making up their own minds. And but yeah, why they attack me, it's weird, because I would say if you really didn't like someone, give them no airtime. No airtime is better. And that's how I treat trolls, for example. I don't respond or make a post about it, whatever. So the fact they're giving me all this attention is actually, I think it's counterproductive for them, actually. But I can't, Rukshan, if I ever wanted to get a normal job, I can't.
Yeah. You've almost been depersoned in a way.
Yeah.
You haven't had that level of extreme thing done to you, but there is a paper trail of the type of person that the media wants people to believe you are.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be pretty hard for you to shake that. That's my honest opinion, because it's so ingrained within that history of the time of the pandemic, and even till today, the animosity they have towards you. Because I see you as, let's say you start some charitable organization for something completely unrelated, helping little kids, whatever, something like this, they will still find you reprehensible for, I'm just saying that's just how I view it, from viewing the animosity they have towards you. Do you think that perhaps, you've had a role to play in that, in the way that you have managed your image, or the way that you've come across to people in terms of, you might have good intentions with what you're trying to do. And Reignite Democracy Australia, correct me if I'm wrong, that was kind of born in response to what was happening in early
August 2020.
Late 2020. Yeah. So that was born in response to what was happening.
Yeah.
And at that time, obviously, people didn't really know the full extent of what was coming down the track. Do you think you were almost a pioneer in a movement of people resisting this idea that you really didn't get to see how you would be framed for doing this.
Oh my
There was a lot of people that came on later on and they saw what happened to people like yourself. So they might have been a bit more smarter in terms of how they went about things, protecting themselves and protecting the way that they're running their organization and so forth. Do you think you just kind of went into the unknown?
I had no idea what was happening. I literally did a live stream in August 2020 and it had 4,500 comments. It had 1.5 thousand live viewers. No one knew who I was. No one knew what Reignite Democracy Australia was. I slapped the website together. I'm not a website designer. And then I did a petition for not extending the lockdowns and I got 20,000 email subscribers. Within 1 week, I was just this poster girl for anti-lockdown and I had no idea what I was doing. I'm not a boss. I hate being a boss. I hate managing people. It's not my skill. I just want to go out on the streets and do this thing. And all of a sudden I became this CEO of an organization and started employing people because I couldn't handle all the messages. And I made tons of mistakes. I also when you have a public figure in any way, there's a balancing act of humble and pride and arrogance too, because you get all this attention really quickly. People hug you as if they love you and it's beautiful. And sometimes it goes to your head and you do stupid things. Yeah. And then you got to come back and it's like a constant thing. So I was probably antagonistic to the police, or I was probably up myself at some point, at some points in times. I think I've managed it a lot better now, but I was thrown into this. And to be honest, I still don't know what I'm doing half the time because I've learnt some things, but there's no book on how to be an anti-lockdown person hated by the media and by the people on the streets. And then there's no book on that. And I just followed the seat of my pants. I think that's the saying. So yeah, I made tons of mistakes. And if I could do it again, maybe I wouldn't do it any differently because I was put there for a reason. I'm the fall girl. It's fine. I can actually handle it, which, not everyone can. There's a lot of things I can't handle, but that's one thing for some reason I find funny.
Yeah.
I find going to prison funny. It's a great story. Whereas other people, I know I'm going off a bit, but other people had, their families broke down or something. I couldn't have handled that. That would have killed me. But going to prison, I could handle that, and I can handle the media attacking me. It's sad, but I can handle it. Anyway, so the point is, I think your question is, could you have done something different to
at the onset, at the start?
And the answer is, I'm actually quite clean person in the sense that, I don't have a criminal record. I don't have anything like this. And I think it quite frustrated the media.
Well, you don't have a criminal record, but you did once try to go on a reality TV show.
I did.
Which is almost as bad as having a criminal record, it seems, because that is always brought up. Now, I know I'm going off a tangent here.
How dare I?
Why did you try to go on a reality TV show? It seems very problematic.
Okay. Because clearly I wanted to be famous at any cost.
Okay.
And, by the way, I applied for Survivor, which is a cool show. It's not like it was Big Brother or Farmer Wants a Wife or Married at First Sight. And if people can do that, it's fine. I don't care. But it could have been an embarrassing show is what I'm saying. And it wasn't.
But because you couldn't, this is the idea that I'm getting, because you couldn't go on Survivor, you decided instead to start a anti-lockdown protest movement so you could end up in solitary confinement.
Yes.
That's the story arc for you. That's what people want you to say, that's the kind of person you are.
When COVID happened, I was like, this is my chance.
Yeah.
This is my chance to be, all over the media and slandered. This is great. I'm just going to become an anti-lockdown person. No, it obviously came from the heart. And I'll be honest with you, actually, about 3 years before COVID hit, I went traveling. I did the Camino de Santiago, which is a 5-week pilgrimage. And on this pilgrimage, I had a lot of time to think. Well, it's 5 weeks of walking. That's all you have to do is put one foot in front of the other. In that time, I forgave myself for a lot of things, but also I had this weird feeling. I think that you might have a voice for something. I didn't know what, right? And then I started traveling around and I picked up a camera and I started asking people questions, and I started learning how to edit videos, and this was 3 years before COVID. So I already kind of wanted to do something in the public eye. I just didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
And all of that traveling and asking people questions and doing free videos for people. I went to orphanages and did free promo videos for them. I knew that if I just kept like plodding along and doing these little projects, it would add up to something. And people think, oh, you know, you just pick up a camera, you make one video and you become a public figure. It doesn't happen like that. It was years of self-development, practicing. I used to be embarrassed to hold a camera in public. You know, it's years of work that got here. And I was never into politics. I've always been a critical thinker. My family are critical thinkers, but I never cared about that stuff. And I didn't know that this would happen, but I knew that the lockdowns were wrong. I knew that something was wrong and that people were starving for a voice. And I didn't know I would be a voice, but it happened.
Yeah.
And it just happened so naturally. I couldn't have planned it better myself.
Yeah, look, when it did happen, and the Reignite Democracy page, I saw it on Facebook as well back then, because obviously everyone was online during that time, right? And at that time I didn't know who you were. I had no idea about any of this stuff, but I was just looking into this stuff, and there was Reignite Democracy Australia. So it all kind of happened organically, is what I'm trying to get at. And you said you had 20,000 people reach out to you like almost straight away for the petition. So clearly there was community discontent at that time.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous to think that people might think that there wasn't, and everyone was just like happy to go along with everything. Clearly people were unhappy with some of the situations they were finding themselves in. But that kind of then built out into this thing where it became more about resisting through actions like protest, through supporting people who were, finding themselves in situations where they were being, harassed by the police. These were things that were becoming more common. For me, a point that really stood out was when they went to that mother in Ballarat, when the pregnant lady in pajamas. I forget her name now. I'm so sorry. But they went to her house, and you saw it kind of online. It was very distressing to see, because that was the first time I realized, like, actually, I get all this stuff with the government and health and safety and all this kind of stuff, but they're using that now to excuse types of behavior which are not common to a country like modern Australia. And for me, that was concerning. And I think that those kind of incidents is what lit the match for this to escalate into something more broader. And again, when that escalated into something more broader, you were kind of there, which I think is why people, again, point the finger at you. Now, I can sympathize with you a little bit, because that same finger is also pointed towards me for different reasons. And that kind of happened a bit later on after that time. But do you think if everything had kind of, finished up there and there was none of this kind of police brutality or police state actions of, raiding people's homes and taking people off the streets for, just walking outside to get fresh air, whatever it is, do you think it would have changed the direction of where you were headed with Reignite Democracy?
Yeah, I wasn't headed anywhere.
Okay.
I had no aspirations.
I guess what I'm trying to say is you are not trying to force people to be reckless or incite things or be, fight the government or go against health orders. It just happened. It evolved.
Yeah.
Is what I'm trying to get at. Yeah.
There was no business plan. There never has been. There never was.
Because the accusation is that you were instrumental in creating this community discontent, disharmony, where I think it actually just happened.
It happened, and I just happened to be there with them. That's pretty much it. I definitely may have, again, I was brazen, and we drove around with that bus. Remember the bus?
Yes.
And I think these sorts of big shows of discontentment is what put me in the positions that you're talking about. But it also put me in a position where other people in our community obviously looked up to me for what I was doing, or like, well, okay, what new initiative is Monica doing now? We want to support it, So I would like to think that I was instrumental in getting people to stand up for themselves. I didn't know that it would be anti-government. I didn't know that the government was so corrupt until things just happened. It just happened. If if I could then rally people to support, disadvantaged children, I can use that skill for that too. It's not my fault that the government did what they did. It just happened, and I was there to push back. And I just don't think that human beings, especially in Australia, should be silenced and told that they shouldn't think a certain way. It just doesn't sit right with me. So that's what happened. And in terms of the RDA sort of plan or organize, I think you alluded to, like, would you have done things differently before? But, I would have done things a bit differently in terms of I wouldn't have grown so quick. I would have managed the growth so that I could have handled everything better, And also, Monica Smit and RDA are two different things. But, of course, I have mashed the two together. People see them as the same thing. And that's not really fair for me either, because it's like this shadow of like, okay, no, you're RDA, you're not Monica Smit anymore. It's like I've actually lost myself, and I made that mistake because of RDA. So I should have had, in theory, like a separate sort of branding for just Monica Smit, where I could just talk, I could be myself and be vulnerable. So I feel I need to now go and refine myself, because I just put everything into that, being that person. And in fact, I've forgotten how to feel emotions. Honestly, I don't feel anymore, hardly at all. And I need to learn that again, because I felt like I always had to be this, well, either I'm the hated person from the media, or I'm the loved person from my community, or the hated person from the troll, or the person who's going to promote your event or your thing. I'm just like all these things, but I'm not me anymore. And it's frustrating. And that's why I'm going away, and that's why I'm not taking a break. I just need to refine myself.
Yeah,
I don't know how else to explain it.
Yeah, no, we can definitely get to that as well, because obviously, it has been life-changing for you, positive, negative, all sorts of things that you just kind of alluded to then. And I think a lot of people don't realize the impact that it has on the person, this kind of attention. And it's not necessarily attention that you want all the time. There's good attention, and then there's also lots of negative attention. And I don't think you've been able to choose which attention you're getting at a certain
I'll
time.
Take that today.
Yeah. So it's not been like that. But, with one of the criticisms that a lot of, quote unquote, freedom movements that RDA has been coupled into, that have developed during this time, one of the main criticisms that you guys get, really the use of community support through donations, through funding, through campaigns which ask for support from the public. Obviously, that's challenging in a way, especially during a time like COVID and the pandemic, where people were struggling with work themselves and, in financial difficulty, things like this. Now, I know personally, being involved in this type of thing, there were lots of kind of opportunities thrown my way, or lots of people telling me, hey, Rukshan, ask for donations, ask for support. But I wasn't really involved in a movement where I thought I could help people by doing things for them. I was doing my live streaming, I was doing my journalism. And for me, that was my outlet in many ways for what I was going through personally as well. But that was all I could offer people. I couldn't really offer them a solution. Do you think you kind of put yourself into a bit of a difficult position by going to the community and for asking for support, for whatever reason that might be, but then maybe not being able to deliver some of the outcomes that people may have hoped that you could deliver? Now, I'm not saying that you didn't have that intention not to, or whatever it is, but clearly there is this idea that if people are supporting you or giving you money, that they want to see you utilize that to help them in some way as well. Do you think you failed at that?
Or others? I mean, the thing is obviously on the back end of receiving donations, I know where the money went, and so when I know the truth, it's easy to ask for money because I know that I'm giving services, you know what I mean? But for someone who doesn't understand what we do with the money, I can totally understand why they think how insensitive of me to ask money from from people that are already struggling, that have lost their jobs, and the living crisis is so bad right now. But I guess at the end of the day is, if you've called RDA, which has a phone number, no other activist organisation in Australia has a phone number that you can call. If you've called them in distress and someone has helped you, then you know. then you know. And having those types of services obviously cost money. But also it's interesting, if people didn't need us, then they would stop supporting us. And I would have shut down a long time ago, you know. If I didn't ask for money, then I would have had to get a real estate job, which is what I did beforehand. And I wouldn't have been able to dedicate 12 hours a day to initiatives and campaigns and things like that. So I have absolutely no regrets asking for money, because I know, God knows, that I did everything honest with the money, but I will say I probably could have managed it better. Like I said, I probably had too many staff.
Well, that's what I mean.
That sort of thing. Yeah. Like, definitely I feel a little bit like I should have made bigger decisions probably 6 months ago, 12 months ago. I should have cut back a lot earlier than I did. And maybe I had a false sense of my service in the community as well. Maybe I had an embellished idea of the help that I was giving people. So, you know, all of that plays a role. And as you know, it's hard. It's been a lot harder to stay relevant, right? So you're kind of grasping at straws. Like, does the community still need me? Do they still need me? And I definitely don't regret asking for money, because I did all those things with it.
Yeah.
We have you know, I'm not going to go through it. You know what we had a lawyer.
Well, look, I mean, look, sometimes people will say, you know, Monica, it's sometimes it's, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Right?
Yeah.
That's the charge that people put against you, and saying, what does that amounted to?
Yeah.
And, you know, if I take off my friendship hat with you, or understanding, you know, what you're doing from that perspective, I can kind of see why people would look at it this way, right? Because they expect results. It's the same. You know, we talk about money, but the government usually takes our money without our we give it to them via taxes or whatever, and then they waste money on all sorts of projects. And we ask the government, what have you done with our money? It's the same kind of thing. You're putting in that same spotlight. And I'm just saying, you know, you're saying you feel comfortable that you've been able to account for yourself for that?
Totally. I mean, 1 year we paid $460,000 in wages. We had 8 staff. We had a full-time community group coordinator who helped. We had over 100 community groups, and her full-time job was to liaise with those groups and give them support. And then inside those groups, the stories are endless, you know. So, and those people, you can only have volunteers for a certain amount of time. Like you need to pay them. That's how the world works. So that's why we had that many staff. So like I said, the phone line, everything needs to be manned. You know what it's like with website development, things like that. So definitely the money went to those types of things. And yes, I'm comfortable enough that we provided enough services that correlate with the amount of money that we had to spend doing it. Did we help everyone? No, but we helped a lot of people. I mean, we got a $24,000 payout from the Fair Work Commission for someone, and we did it for free. All of it's for free. Legal for free. I mean, who gets free legal advice? No one. But he was getting paid a wage from RDA, and that's why he was able to give that free legal advice. I'm really proud of all that. So I think that answers your question. And I paid myself $500 a week this entire time. I was in real estate, Rukshan. I made hundreds of thousands of dollars in 1 year in real estate because I invested the money as well. So I could go get a job and make a lot more money and have no stress, and no one would ask me questions about my wages.
I mean, look, I get it. Like,
I know.
You know, people make fun of me for being a wedding photographer, but it's actually a good business to be in, and it's very hard for me to give that up for, you know, a career in activism or in journalism, to the extent that I gave up for my business, my wedding photography business during that time. So I understand that you can't just do stuff for nothing forever without support. So most charities, most NGOs, they have a lot of government support, or, you know, support from organizations, corporate support, these kind of things. Whereas a organization like yourself, it became really about the community support, didn't it? People giving up, you know, donations, $10, $50, $100, whatever it is, to make sure that you guys were a viable organization during the height of that time. And look, I don't judge what people do with their money. I think we're all adults. We're entitled to spend our money on whatever cause you like. Some people support, donating to environmental groups. Now, I would think that's a sham because I don't believe in a lot of that climate crisis nonsense. I reckon they're grifting and scamming.
Yeah.
But people will call you grifting and scamming because you're fighting against lockdowns and all this kind of stuff. People to this day call me a grifter and scammer, and I
ask for money.
I made a point of at the height of the time where people really acknowledged the work that I was doing, which was after the protest on the Westgate Bridge. I put out a post saying, there's no way that you can give me money or donate to me, because I was not comfortable with that, because I didn't know what I would do with that. I didn't know
services.
Yeah, I didn't know what I was going to do with it. I didn't know if in the future that I would, after all this ends, if I would go back full time to wedding photography. What am I offering people that they're going to give me stuff for what? Yeah. What am I going to do with this, right? It's a short term gain for me. Yeah. There's nothing that I'm doing with it. And I always said then that when I ever felt comfortable, when I'm actually serious completely about what I'm doing, then yes, I have no problem asking the community for support.
Because you would know that you would know what your plans are.
So, I would be comfortable with doing that. Yeah. So
I'll tell you what, I wish I was rich though. If I was rich, I'd just pay for everything myself.
Yeah. But rich people
don't do that.
I'm not making a judgment call on rich people, but a lot of people with enough means to have a serious voice during this time, they kept quiet.
They did.
Because they weren't impacted. Being in business myself, a small business, small businesses were really impacted. And I know a lot of people think that the government had support plans and all this kind of nonsense. The reality of it is that was, virtually, it was laughable, whatever they were offering. Yeah. And I'm lucky enough to have survived as a business, but I know a lot of businesses that didn't. So, I don't think many rich people or people of well-to-do means really stood up to the plate in terms of putting themselves I was waiting
for someone to value what I was doing and understand that having financial stress on top of that isn't good for my mental state, so that I can continue doing this work. I was waiting for someone to just support us, but it never happened. The biggest donations we ever got were $5,000, I think 3 different times. You know what I mean? And also, how the other lobby groups or whatever you want to call them, they get help from the government. For me, it was the opposite. They're still coming after me for different, for authority bodies are coming after me for the fundraiser, for example, because I didn't register it. Yeah. I was in prison.
Yeah.
How was I supposed to register it?
Yeah.
Someone else did it. But anyway, the point is, so they're coming after me. I can't get non-for-profit status because of my political activities. And if you do get not-for-profit status, they breathe down your neck every 3 months. And I just couldn't handle that stress. So the government's working against me. It's been an uphill battle just to kind of stay around.
Yeah. And I mean, on that, with the government coming after you, there was a time where there was a lot of attention on Reignite Democracy Australia and what they were doing, and particularly on social media, what you guys were doing on social media. And that was during the time when I think they took you off Facebook.
Yeah.
They completely wiped you guys out. Yeah. They wiped out some of your chapters, Victorian chapters, and there was a lot of attention on pretty much making sure that you couldn't rise again on that particular platform. So
shut up, stay down.
Yeah, and that was for me. I'm completely against this kind of censorship nonsense, and that was a height of censorship, because one of the charges against you guys, when I say charges, I mean by these social media companies and the media, was that you were again making people harming people by sharing information, right?
Yeah.
Harming people by sharing hope, harming people by talking about things like protests or sharing information about, vaccine, scientific news that are alternative to what the government was saying. Looking back today, a lot of the stuff you were sharing at that time
was right.
Or you've been vindicated in many ways.
Yes.
But you paid a pretty heavy price in terms of your social media presence during that time. And I'm saying it's important because for a business to have that presence, to have that connection to the people through these outlets, without having to go underground, Now I know you have a presence on Telegram and all this kind of stuff, but that is
the same though, is
that's
it?
a bit like you're being forced to go into an underground kind of to a different platform. This censorship, especially knowing that now that a lot of the stuff was correct, what do you make of it all? Because there is still this perception in the community that was all okay, that all that censorship, all those removing of pages, all that shutting down of debate was okay because we had to protect the community from whatever the hell they're saying we had to protect them from. What do you make of it all? Because I think, you were in that aspect the target again.
The fall girl. Again.
Yeah, because not many groups in Australia got removed in that way. For instance, my page wasn't taken down in that manner. I had other problems, but not to the extent where they just wiped me completely.
Yeah.
Why did they wipe your page completely? Like, what had you done specifically that you can, narrow down where they would just wipe a page?
Well, I think I did say one thing that was slightly incorrect. I think I said something about the vaccine. I don't know. Can I say it properly here, or
it's got to be on YouTube, so you can't tell the truth on YouTube.
Okay, so I'll just like spell it out. I said that's not true. It has been,
yes,
just incorrectly,
yes,
and for a short period of time.
Yes.
So I made a statement that was actually false, and
yes.
So they used that to shut me down. Yeah.
Yeah.
But obviously there was a lot of warnings before that. But I do find it interesting. I before having a big social media presence, I was just me, and I didn't really actually believe that censorship was the way it was. I'm like, it's not going to happen to me. Come on, like I'm just sharing like hopeful stuff and making videos, smiling, and like it's not going to happen to me. I also didn't think I'd get arrested either. So I'm quite naive, and by design, I like to be naive because I like to think that. Like to see the best in people, and I like to imagine that people aren't going to be attacked or whatever. So I like being naive, but it did take me by surprise because I was not expecting it at all. And it's sad that we're censored that way, but it also is obvious. It's so obvious that there's something sinister going on if you're blocking debate, because if you knew what you were doing was right, you wouldn't have to block debate. You just wouldn't. So there's something sinister going on. There is definitely a side that is favoured for whatever reason, and I'm not going to assert those reasons, but lack of debate is a huge problem for society, and we all know that. Yes. So it's scary. It's obviously scary, and it's impactful.
Well, look, I think since that time, obviously a lot of documents have been revealed that show that this censorship was coordinated between governments and these big tech companies. Now, we know in the US, for instance, companies like Twitter and Facebook, through these freedom of information requests from certain governments, it's shown that they had people liaising
meetings
with government officials about targeting particular people. Now, we don't have that kind of information for Australia because we haven't had those leaks or we haven't had those requests met. But I'm under the impression, and I have no evidence of this, but I can only go by what happened overseas in America. It's very likely that in Australia as well, there were people liaising with Facebook, with these tech companies, and bringing up your name and saying that, keep an eye on this person, we need to remove them. Probably because we don't have the evidence for it, but what I've seen overseas, it's more than likely that happened here as well. And, the way that they wiped your page, they wiped, I think, Craig Kelly.
Yes.
And there's probably a few other pages that they wiped. Particularly, I think they wiped a few pages that were discussing the injuries very early on. Those were all gone.
I was already gone by that point.
Yeah, you were already gone by that point. Yeah. So, like, this was happening. But it's very interesting that you have since then found ability to continue despite that.
Yeah.
So despite that happening, you kept going.
Well, it's because probably the email. I mean, I think some really good decisions I made is collecting emails right at the beginning. Yeah. So that's why I had over 100,000 email database. That is way more powerful than a Facebook page. because you're going into someone's inbox directly, they're reading it directly, it's not just a feed. So if it wasn't for that, I probably would have been more devastated. But I actually wasn't that devastated when I lost Facebook. Except for the live streams. The live streams are really dramatic sometimes, and you've had the most dramatic live streams in history, I think. But yeah, so it wasn't that sad, and I do have a presence now again under my own name and stuff. So we'll take two.
Yeah, take two. Yeah. Till they shut you down again.
Well, things aren't as heated as they were. So unless something, I obviously am talking about keeping cash alive and digital ID and things like that, or and so if those things come to head, then I'll probably be censored again. Yeah. And but before I get censored, I'll hopefully get out some good stuff. Make it worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Look, the other issue is that you can probably comment on. There's a fracture within the so-called freedom movement. Now, a lot of your detractors, we've talked about the media, we've talked about the government, the police, and all this stuff where they don't like you because you went against their messaging and stuff. But within the movement itself, even people you've personally known or worked with, you have had issues where they've also been very critical of you, of what you're doing, and also accused you of all sorts of things as well. Why do you think it's happening within the movement that you are, a very much integral part of, particularly at the very beginning, this fracture?
Well, funnily enough, I actually don't see that stuff. So I don't know exactly what you're referring to, but
there's no particular thing. Yeah.
But I'm imagining. I purposely don't see them because actually getting trolled by the media and by the police and stuff doesn't hurt me at all. When the freedom movement, people I've met in person and hugged and been shot at with and things like that actually is hurtful, super hurtful. It's hard, really hard. That does get me. That's the only thing that gets me when it comes to the trolling and stuff. But I understand as well. I got a lot of attention for going to prison, and a lot of good attention, a lot of bad attention. They only see the good. I don't know, asking for money, things like that. I can see why some of them don't like me. I totally understand. What I'm hoping is that time will tell, and what I would love is that if, let's say, I had a good initiative, but you hate me, okay? I wish that people could see the initiative and be like, oh, that's a good initiative. I don't care who did it, I wish that humans could do that, but unfortunately, most humans can't. It's just human nature. There's this competitive streak in us. There's this ego. I have it too, and I'm learning how to manage it a lot better. We always say, oh, wouldn't it be great if everyone just worked together? And wouldn't it be great if, and then you say, oh, it's because everyone's got an ego. But what people fail to do is look at their own ego.
Yeah.
So I thought I wasn't the problem.
Yeah.
And then I realized that I have an ego too.
Well, you worked with a lot of people very early on. But
I took over. I was controlling.
Okay.
These are things I didn't know about myself until later. I thought I was easy to work with, but it turns out I always think I can do it better.
Yeah.
So I'll be like, okay, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And the thing about doing that is that you take away the ability for that person to grow in that particular experience, and you just kind of like a mother doing everything for their kid.
Yeah.
So I actually failed a lot to work with people, not because I was hard to work with, like I wasn't like critical and things like that. It's just that I just went and did it myself, So I can see now why it's happening now is where you kind of started is the freedom movement is struggling right now because we used to have obviously this obvious elephant in the room, lockdowns, mandates, things like that. It was really easy to work together on that common crisis because we were all in crisis. And to be honest, the best thing that could ever happen to the freedom movement now would probably be another lockdown because we'd all come back together and we'd forget all of this stuff. But human nature is that because there's a lull, obviously we're looking for other drama. Some people are attracted to the drama that we went through.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen, it's pretty funny. Like I see a lot of like personal dramas in this stuff and people talking about each other and all this kind of nonsense. And, I look at that and I say, like a lot of the time there's no hope for these type of individuals to be able to carry something on into this forward.
And I could say, like, I'm very proud that I've never attacked anyone online, ever. And so if people have issues with me, it's one-sided. I'll never, ever slag someone from the freedom movement online. I did write an open letter to Clive Palmer. That's a professional way to do that. And I had to respond to Sanjeev because he said I stole his Facebook page, but we changed the name. And so those are the only two things that I have spoken out loud about, never, ever before. So I'm really proud of that. And I think talking about other people within the movement, it brings down the vibration of your audience. And I don't think it's kind to do it to your audience. I think your audience you have a responsibility if you have an audience, right? What you say and do is important because it could affect someone in a good or bad way, right? So when you slag off someone within the freedom movement, it makes other people feel like they don't like it. It's not nice. They finish watching that video feeling worse than when they started watching the video. And my mission is always that someone finishes watching a video of mine and feels better than they did when they started. That's one of my whys, you know? And so it's just not kind. And also I am always available to talk to people, but they don't talk to me. They just talk to their audience, which is, you know, but it's okay. And I'll forgive them, by the way. Like I no hard feelings whatsoever.
Not holding grudges.
Time will tell.
Yeah.
Or it won't, or whatever.
Yeah.
Who cares?
I mean, is there like a thing where some people, maybe more prominent people as well, for instance, in this movement, might view you as toxic to them because of all the things that have happened surrounding you, to be associated with you? Is that a hindrance for you in any way?
I think during the height of the mandates and stuff, definitely I was more vocal than the average person. So I think, yes, people were.
Because I saw you initially, like on, I think it was a YouTube show or something, People's Project and stuff, and then you kind of disappeared from that, and then you were doing different things, and then slowly it became more internalized around just what you were doing. You were working less collaboratively with people around.
I loved going on the streets. I hated being in a studio like this because every week we had to plan the show. There's a lot of hours in a studio, and then I got the bus and I was like, oh, this is way better.
The bus is more fun.
And I'm like, sorry, Matt, I can't be stuck in a studio.
I came on the bus.
That was it.
Once, I didn't come. Did I come on the? Was it a bus?
Yeah, you were there. You made that really cool video.
I came on the bus to kind of film what you guys were doing. That was quite interesting at that time.
And we got pulled over like so many times.
That's
like
right,
everywhere. We got pulled over like 3 or 4 times, and that's when I started getting used to.
Actually, then I went to one of the protests, I think at the Shrine, and you had bought the bus there.
Yeah.
And the police.
We got there at like 5 a.m.
The police were then inspecting the bus the whole time, trying to find a fault.
They even parked in front of the Sackdan Andrews section so people couldn't see it. And they put a camera, so they looked at the whole bus and they found that one of the tires had a little bit of a bald spot.
Yeah, I mean when they want to find something, they'll find something.
Good times. But I can't remember what we're talking about.
No, that's okay. We're just talking about the freedom movement in general, but that's all right. I guess now looking towards the future for Monica Smit and whatever else that you're doing at the moment, and I see you do some work under the brand name of Reignite Freedom, which is more of a global type of initiative. And, you've doing different smaller projects that are related to things which are on topic today. So I think some of the issues were around, digital currencies, keeping cash alive, really keeping an eye on these globalists like our friend Klaus. These kind of things. Do you think there's a global audience for what you're doing?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I know there is. I've got the database to prove it. So I've got a just as big database for Reignite Freedom now. So, when I went to Amsterdam last August, I had an event, a casual catch-up event, and I had 2 of them, and 70 people showed up to both of them.
Yeah. And again, these events you're going to, just circling back to what we were discussing before, a lot of the times people accuse you of going on holidays.
Oh, yeah.
Grifting money.
Yeah.
Okay. And then taking that money, instead of doing stuff for the community, you're going on holidays to Europe to lounge about and stuff. Is that what you're doing in Amsterdam?
I almost quit RDA last time I went to Europe because, I almost packed it all in. You know why? Because I was in Amsterdam, one of the most beautiful places ever, on my computer the entire time. My dad was with me. He was going bike riding and getting ice creams, and I'm sitting on the computer in this dark room. Like, I cannot believe I'm in Europe and I'm working on my computer. I'm like, this cannot be my life. Honestly, I cried. I literally cried because I was so disappointed that I couldn't go outside. It just blew me away. It was a week and a half. I was working the entire time and networking. So it's very, and then to get trolled for it when you're working your butt off, you're just like, oh, you don't know, and you want to justify yourself, but you can't because it doesn't matter what you say.
Yeah, well, you're in Europe. You're in Amsterdam.
I know.
You're in Europe. Surely you're not working in Europe.
Surely, and I actually, the flights and accommodation were paid for by someone else, by them. So that as well. But it doesn't matter what you say. And I had an investment property, and I sold it near the beginning of COVID, and I've still got money left over. And so when I go to Europe this time, I'm using my own money. But it doesn't matter what you say; people won't believe you. But I know, so yes. I don't care.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, all that matters to me is what the people directly around me think of me, my family, God, and me. If I have that confidence, then who cares, And the others, like I said, I understand.
Yeah.
When someone goes to Europe, I'm jealous that they're going to Europe. So I get it. But I can't be everything for everyone. And what I also, it's like, I've been through so much in the last 3 years. Shock horror that I want to get away, like
you're such like you're
why do I have to be stuck here?
Because you're a bad person. You don't deserve it. You try to go on Survivor. You incited
I used to go
people
on holidays all the time and no one cared.
You incited people to protest during these crazy lockdowns. You did all these negative things that you don't deserve to have a normal life.
Faked my own arrest in prison.
Faked your own arrest.
It was fake. I was in this beautiful lavish mansion and
I mean that's what people are saying. You don't deserve
a trip to Europe,
a normal life or whatever it is.
So,
but forget about all of this. What are you going to do in Europe this time?
What am I going to do in Europe? Okay, so because I have this international database and I tested it out in Amsterdam and had 2 successful events, basically I want to leave a trail of community groups in my wake, basically, in my path. So that's my skill set. My skill set is meeting a small group of people, hugging them all, smiling, making everyone being real, but making people feel good about being in that community. And then I want them to have a community. So a natural leader will arise in this event and they will take everyone's emails down and that's a community group done and dusted. Now, I never know the impact of that, but I don't need to because I know that it's good. Yeah. And if tyranny comes back in full force like it was, if you have support and resources and just people around you, you are going to be able to withstand the intimidation longer than if you had no one around you.
But after everything you've been through, like how can you be bothered? Why do you care?
It makes me feel good. The selfish reason for doing everything that I do is because I lay there at night and after someone tells me that I helped them through a terrible time, I feel really good about it. That's it. Just makes me feel good. Sometimes I get a little bit arrogant and I'm like, well, Monica, look what you did, And then I'm like, wait, I could be paralyzed tomorrow if God wants me to be. Everything I have is because of God. And nothing is a new idea either. Every idea I've had is a combination of these conversations and learnings. Nothing I've done is original.
Yeah.
I'm literally just a vessel, right? I also don't have children and I'm not married and my body clock is running out. Very fast. I'm 35 in 3 days. Yeah. I think about that all the time. Am I going to regret putting all my effort into other people instead of my own life? I was engaged, that broke up. I think prison and all that was part of why I broke up.
Yeah.
Why that broke up. So why do I keep doing it? I feel like I'm like Truman Show. I feel like sometimes I'm watching my own life.
Yeah.
Like I have no control over it. And that's why I'm going to Europe and I've got no plan. I've got no return ticket and I've got no agenda whatsoever. But I'm going to meet the best people and I'm going to do things. And I know it will also inadvertently help Australia because if I can make good connections, then when we have a good initiative here, I can help it go global, things like that. So anyway, I am having also, if people follow me, they would know that RDA is going through some issues right now and it probably will have to cease all operations in terms of services, but the social media and stuff will still be around. So I'm having a bit of a crisis right now when it comes to what's next for Monica. Is Monica RDA, or is she Reignite Freedom, or is she Monica? So I'm going to figure all that out. But I think I've gone off tangent. But
that's very recent news as well. And I saw a bit of that talking about potentially.
I feel like a failure.
Potentially the company going bankrupt.
Yeah.
And as someone who works in business, a lot of business is about failure and success, failure and success. And you fail multiple times before you figure out exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
So it's usually okay to be fail at
Not
something.
when it's other people's money though.
Yes.
That's the difference.
Of course. There is that thing attached to it. But I think one of the things you mentioned is RDA an organization as it exists today that's required?
No.
And
it's not.
I would probably say my summation is that it's probably not in the way that it acted during those times. And, how relevant it is to the issues that we're facing today is also questionable. Again, that's not a condemnation of anything you've done in the past, but that is kind of the reality of, you're kind of
pushing shit uphill.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what I've been doing for
it
the last
feels a little bit like that. So you're saying you're kind of in this moment where you're figuring out who Monica Smit is.
Yes, and also I was, I guess you could say RDA is my baby, right? And I didn't want to let it go. And like I said, I had it over. I thought we were still needed, but we're not. And I've only really recently realized that. What we are needed for is still the social media presence and obviously the initiatives and things like that. But no one needs to hear updates, news updates from us. There's so many other people doing it. I don't do interviews anymore. The community groups are established. They don't need me. And people have found their own tribes, things like that. I wish, Rukshan, biggest mistake I made in terms of business is I should have asked these questions 12 months ago. And I'm pretty sure people told me and I didn't want to listen because I didn't want to let go. It's like it's hard to consider that you were so pivotal for so many people. That's what they told me, and now you're not. It's a traumatic thing to go through. But having closed the chapter on the court case and having told the audience that RDA might have to close down, kind of thing. It's very freeing, but it's very hard. Really, really put myself out there, and the attacks that I got. Because I asked the audience, and is RDA? Oh, actually, this is interesting. When I asked when that had that warrant case, right? And I said, I don't know what to do. I've spent the first legal fund on the lawyer giving free legal advice, and I had to spend $80,000 fighting that warrant case and lost. So I'd run out of legal fund money. I asked the audience, do you want me to keep fighting this or not? I got the answer very clear. I'm talking like within 3 days, I knew 100% that people wanted me to continue fighting.
Okay.
4 or 5 days ago, I asked that same question about RDA.
What did they say?
They don't need it. So it is what it is. I'm almost certain they don't need it. It's like, but we're talking, it was 5% of the answer that I got from me having a legal case. It was 5% of the answer. And what that showed me, and this is very recent, obviously, what that showed me is that people might care more about me than they do about RDA.
Organization.
Yeah. So now I need to take the branding away and just be me, like I said. And it's gonna be a transition. There's gonna be some really weird videos coming out, like me being vulnerable.
What type of transition are we speaking about?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know, Rukshan. I don't know. But I cried in court yesterday. Yeah. I feel something's changing in me, and I don't know what it is, but we'll see.
Yeah, on transition actually. Now, obviously, of late, you've been discussing some issues which are controversial within the community. Maybe they shouldn't be controversial, women's rights and the protection of children and so on. And again, you are kind of being thrust into the limelight as a instigator or villain in this particular moment. Is that fair? Well, firstly, is that fair? Because are you really the one instigating all this kind of community discontent about this issue? And I personally, I don't think you are. And your views on this particular issue, people are saying it's bigoted. It comes from a place of hatred. Is that where it comes from? What can you explain? And if anyone doesn't know what I'm talking about issues like drag story time, or women's rights in terms of trans
safe spaces
for women, right? Is just for biological women.
Yeah.
What's
so I mean, it doesn't really matter what you say. People are going to call you a bigot anyway, as you know, because you're a racist Nazi. So
that's it's not true, but that is.
I know. Sorry, in case they didn't know, that was a joke. Someone's gonna take that out and just say Monica called. Anyway, whatever. The point is, adults can do whatever they want in the privacy of their own home. Actually, they've over-exaggerated how much we care. We don't care. They think they're more important than they are, I think. It's only when it affects minors that it bothers me. That's it.
Okay.
Full stop. Read books to old people, people your own age, do drag queen. And actually, my religious community don't agree with me on this. They think that I should be like, no, trans is bad, full stop.
Yeah. And what's your religious community for people on?
Like, I'm Catholic. I'm a traditional Catholic.
Yeah.
So it's a Latin mass. Anyway, so they think I'm too libertarian on this. But that's what I think. I think you can do whatever you want in your privacy of your own home. Just don't bring it to kids or 15-year-old girls' bathrooms. That's pretty simple. Now, I will tell you a funny story about me being pivotal or not, in the background is these two ladies came to me and they wanted to go to the council meeting in Oakley that you went to.
So this is the Monash City Council meeting where they were discussing they were talking about the drag story time that they're going to have this event, and a lot of people from the community and a lot of people outside the community attended this meeting to show protest, I guess, against the council's decision.
Yeah, but gee, what a respectful crowd of people. They just waited outside and they filed in, and do you know what I mean? It was such a respectful protest, I thought. But anyway, the point is, these two ladies came to me and they wanted to do this, and I said, I can help you make it better, because they just had written me an email, and I was like, I'll just do some posters for you. I'll do a website for you as a donation, and then you manage it, right? Because I don't have the resources to manage things. So I did that, and I was supposed to be anonymous. Yeah, that was the point. They want to be anonymous. I didn't want to be attacked again for then being anti-LGBT, whatever. I didn't remember that .com.au's have names attached to them.
Yeah. So your fingerprints are all over. This is again coming back to the same thing, Monica. Your fingerprints are all over this. Do you understand why the media and people are like, you're the person that's in the background instigating this stuff?
Yeah, because I am sometimes. So yeah, I deserve that. But you know what I think is interesting is the two mums, they definitely need to stay anonymous because they've got children and they couldn't handle that.
Yeah.
So I think the fact that my name was accidentally there, they're not going to be looking for them, which is good. And I'm like, you know what? I'm already stuffed. My name's already stuffed anyway. So I guess it was meant to be.
Yeah.
Next time I'll be doing a .com. I've learnt my lesson.
Yeah.
So what I like to do now is I like doing unbranded, unfaced things. What a big mistake I made was put my face everywhere.
So you're almost like a freedom movement consultant helping people.
Just like sneaking around ineffectively.
Yeah.
Because now
activism consulting.
Yeah. So because what I love is taking an idea, making it look pretty, and then spitting it out. And if someone else can deal with the admin, then I can keep doing the fun stuff that I like doing, and without having to have staff and things like that, because like I said, the weight of that admin is what's brought me down, So if there's some unbranded stuff out there, you can, you can think maybe it might be me or maybe not, and you just won't really know. You just won't really know.
Fair enough.
Which is good for your ego, by the way.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm doing unbranded stuff is because there's so much animosity within the freedom movement that if there's a good initiative, but it's mine, people won't do it. It's ridiculous. It's not good. But I figured that out. I can't change human nature. So now I'm taking my face out of things and people are supporting it. It's a great new revolution that I have figured out.
Yeah.
Brandless, faceless. If the messaging is good enough, it doesn't need a brand.
Yeah.
Or a face.
Yeah.
And then I can't be the fall girl anymore.
So you're almost kind of like, I'm being funny here, but you're kind of like the globalists. You're kind of like the reverse version of a Klaus.
Yeah, but
you're doing like, freedom movement style activism. I mean, good
nice stuff.
Yeah, the other side of the coin. Yeah.
Other side of the coin. Oh gosh. And by the way,
this must be how they think.
What?
That they're just, faceless men.
Faceless men, yeah. So yeah, it's going to be a fun transition.
Yeah.
To doing that, and I might be working with some other anyway, whatever.
Yeah.
No one's really.
And what about politics? Is that
I hate politics.
You hate politics. I mean, you kind of gave it a go, and that didn't work out as well. Like that became complicated in different ways as well.
We opened a party. We got enough. Members straight away, and then I went to prison, and the team that I was working with on this didn't use my prison as a way to get more members and boost the social medias. And I came out of prison, I was like, you idiots. You just missed a really great opportunity to grow the party's brand, And I'm like, I can't do this. I can't do it. So I said, sorry guys, not doing it. Plus UAP was really growing up as well. So I'm like, they've got the money, they've got the, whatever. I'm letting go of politics. Then Morgan ran as an independent and I went second on his ticket to support him. And I ran a huge volunteer campaign. Yeah. We used up everyone's energy. It was horrible. I actually started getting rashes on my hands. I lost hair. I had a sty in my eye. I've never been so unhappy. I started drinking every night. Smoking vapes and just disgusting stuff that I don't want to be doing, and not exercising, things like that. It was a terrible time in my life, and that was because of politics. And politics is not moral, and it's not about what's right and wrong. It's about what you have over people. And people can hate each other, but because they need them they'll just like pretend, and it makes me sick.
Yes.
And then because I'm a intentionally naive person, and when I say that, I'm not dumb. I just like to see the good side in things and not see all the evil. The point is, if I was in politics, absolutely I would lose that naivety because I would have to be surrounded by negativity all the time, and I don't want to lose my positive attitude. Yeah. So I'm not going into politics. I have been offered other positions, but I'm not. It's not for me.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I don't particularly like politicians, so
no.
There is that. But look, Monica, it's been great catching up with you and having this chat, and really kind of understanding your views on some of the things that people say about you and some of the things that you're planning to do. How can people, where can they follow you? How can they find out about what you're doing and keep in touch with you? What's the platform you're on?
Well, luckily about 5 years ago, I did a blog when I was traveling the Camino. I was going to be a travel blogger, by the way, before I applied for Survivor. So, I've tried to be famous a lot of times. And anyway, so monicasmit.com, I bought that. Thank God, or else a troll would have bought it. So monicasmit.com, Monica Smit on Facebook, Monica Smit on Instagram. So I'm going to start just doing my own stuff under my own name. That's pretty much the best way to follow me at the moment, because I don't know what's happening with RDA or Reignite Freedom or anything.
Yeah.
So just Monica Smit.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And
that's it.
if you have, last thing, any advice, there's another Monica Smit out there. There's another young girl like yourself who might get caught up in some political debate or an issue. What is one thing that you, after all this experience that you have now and everything that you've been through, what's one point of wisdom that you'd like to impart onto them when they start this journey? I
got this from a friend, a transsexual friend, not that it matters, but it just goes to show that I'm not a bigot. But anyway, she said something to me and I want to relay that. And that is, doesn't matter what you do as long as you have purity of intention. So even if I've failed with RDA and I wasted money on too many staff or something like that, my intention was pure and I know that. So I can go to sleep every night with a good conscience. And it doesn't matter whether it's protesting or whether it's, you're trying to help your friend with something and you stuff up, if your intention is pure, your conscience is clear, you're going to be fine. But always check yourself first. Why am I doing this? Why am I making this video? Why am I protesting? And as long as your intention is right, you can never actually be wrong. That would be it. Perfect, Monica. Thank you so much. And thank you for everyone for joining me for this very first proper episode of
Real Time with
honor.
Rukshan. Yeah.
What an honor.
Thanks, Monica.